I would absolutely take a chance on people like that. So kind of show me that you're interested. I don't really care what you're coming from. Just show me that you're willing to invest. Obviously, critical thinking, attention to detail, curiosity, these kind of endurance, preferably, these kind of character traits would be very beneficial. So that's for the people looking to make the change. Just try.
Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wylie Show. Today I'm joined by Lisa Landau. Lisa and I got to meet in person at B-Sides San Francisco this year during RSA and B-Sides San Francisco. So I got to meet her and her business partner, Tim, there, which I plan to have on episode of my new podcast, Simply Offensive. If you hadn't checked out Simply Offensive yet, give it a listen. So at any rate, it's great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Philip. I'm very, very happy to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, glad we finally got it scheduled. I'm sorry it took so long to get you scheduled on here. It's one of the problems you have when you go to a lot of conferences and you connect with a lot of people. You always see these good guests, potential guests for the podcast, and you think I need to schedule this person, and then time passes, and you know I didn't and forgot, and all this. So it can kind of be difficult now. I have just reached out to one of my friends that I had her on my previous podcast, and that's been years ago. And this podcast has been running for over 2 years, and I've intended to have her on this podcast, and finally got around to getting her scheduled. So that kind of shows. So fortunately for you, it was just a matter of months and not years.
No, I'm glad we finally got it scheduled, and I know how popular the show is. So yeah, feeling very, very blessed to be here and to take part in this.
Yeah, it's good to have you. I have a lot of people that are trying to break into the industry, or maybe they're trying to move into different areas of the industry, and these stories can be inspiring. And I think with your background, this could be very interesting because not everyone has got the experience to work in the startup worlds. Maybe you can shed some light on that type of a role, and maybe give people some idea of maybe something to try, because corporate life is just kind of pretty much a given. If someone's going to work in cybersecurity or IT, some kind of technology, they're going to typically work for some big company. People don't always work for startups. Some people hear about the risks of working for a startup, and sometimes they hear about a lot of work, a lot of hours and things that may turn people off to that. So unless you really talk to someone that's worked in it, there's really no idea for people to understand that area. So kind of before we get any further, if you wouldn't mind sharing your origin story, kind of how you got started up until what you're doing today.
I'm happy to. Yeah, so it's not the usual hacker origin story, but I guess we did get, a lot of it is very hacker related, because here we are with, a company of my own that does a lot of that. So yeah, so I get to wear the hats and the t-shirts and be very much involved in that world and with those people. I guess it starts not exactly in cyber, but so I was in intelligence in the military in the IDF. I was in the intelligence directorate. It's not cybersecurity what I did, and it was many years ago. But I think it's very, very related, and it's very transferable. You just take one world and transfer it onto the virtual and the cyber world over the years. But that kind of got me very interested in that entire setup and how the defensive versus offensive and everything intelligence world brings with it, the operations and the risk and all of those things. And then I left that for traditional pursuits, and I was studying and working for a startup in a different industry. And as we spoke a little before, it was a global startup, and with my background in East Asia and Japan, and I studied in Japan before. So the startup I was working for eventually asked me if I'd moved to Japan, which I did, which was, I guess, fortunate because that brought me into the cyber world. I did roles that I was working for nearly a decade in roles that had to do with customers, customer success, professional services, etc. And then my previous employer, previous company, which was a startup, a very young startup back in the day in cybersecurity and endpoint security, they reached out to me. I knew one of the co-founders used to be an ex-colleague, and they were getting an investment from Japan, so they needed somebody who understood how to do go-to-market in Japan. And I decided to extend my stay in Japan for that a little longer. It took a few months of convincing, but eventually I said yes. I felt like industry-wise, I actually wanted it was a little daunting because I was like, well, I'm working in digital marketing, and it's very different. Would they take me? It felt like very much something I would want to do, but a complete shift in industry. I wasn't sure how my skills would be transferable. I don't know if it's pleasantly or unpleasantly, but I was surprised to find out that it's all very, very similar. Companies are companies, startups are startups, growth pains are growth pains, customer problems are customer problems. So in that sense, all of those skills were very transferable, and it worked to my advantage. And obviously, understanding how to deal with clients and organizations and companies in different countries and continents, and that was very helpful as well. And then it's been a decade since then, so I've been in cyber for a decade, and I happened started by building out the post sale, which very quickly became me building out their entire cybersecurity services, which was at first obviously very daunting because they come from something different. So, but I tend to do very deep research and find people I trust, people who are very strong in their field, and assess and evaluate their advice. Basically, built out a SOC, built out an incident response, built out advisory services, and over time became more knowledgeable, I guess, in that. It became very much my thing, and found out that professional services are my strength. So I've never become hands-on. I can't write code, although I did play a little bit with a bit. It's very important for me to, I don't like to do things I don't understand. So I can't, write the script and copy it. So everything I do, I try to understand or try it or go more deeply into it so I can represent it more authentically. And yeah, so I spent 8 years under cybersecurity vendor in doing different roles on a global scale, and which ultimately led me to start a company of my own with the co-founder you mentioned before. We worked together for a couple of years. We built a few great teams together, incident response, blue team. And through those years, we had a lot of conversations with other people, with each other, about all the lessons learned we have, all the different vendors. We've seen how companies work on the inside, interviewing people, hiring people, speaking to customers. So kind of the lessons learned and the pains of the cybersecurity world were in front of us on a map. And we really felt like we want to do something that would take it to the next level, not under the umbrella of somebody else, but really take those gaps and the fragments and the cybersecurity landscape that we recognize, to put them all into something that would be effective and good, and do it on our own terms. So yeah, so that's how we started Translate about a year and a half ago, a little more, and that's where we are.
Oh, very cool. So how do you feel like your previous jobs kind of help prepare you to start a startup?
So I might say something that a lot of the younger founders may not like. Think it was very advantageous for me years of corporate career in different settings and in different sizes of business. Having worked in a startup was actually very helpful because startups got at an early stage and point. We all know they don't have a lot of resources, and you have to wear many hats. And then you have to wear many hats, as stressful as it is and as exhausting as it may be. You get to try yourself in many roles, which when you build a company, it is very beneficial to understand them. If you just work somewhere in a pretty well-defined role, you will probably be an expert in that role. But then you won't get to know what a sales cycle looks like, what renewals look like, what is a CRM, what is sales operations. what is legal? What do you need to do on the legal side? How does finance work? FP&A, all these things. None of them were my direct role, but because I had to go with the startups through all these roles, and eventually I was in management leadership, and as part of leadership, you have to build budgets. You're part of that, you have a seat at some form of a table. So you get your hands dirty and all these things. So when you're on your own, it may be more scary because you understand what you're about to deal with. So in that sense, I'm actually envious of those young technical founders who just had this great idea of a product and they left for it. And they just don't know how much they're going to have to deal with. So that naivety, I think, is wonderful because I had a lot of fears going into this, and I had a lot of I knew what I was going towards. But in a lot of in many senses, it's very helpful because I've built business units before. I've built businesses within business before. Not identical, but it's very helpful to have that experience.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you work for startups, some of the opportunities and learning and stuff like that that you get to do because since I've kind of been on more the vendor side, working for startups and vendors since like 2022, a lot of the stuff since I do evangelism, I end up falling under the marketing teams, which is something I'd never really worked with before, but it's interesting some of the things you pick up and get to do in those roles. One of the things about startups is, there seems to be a lot of good opportunities for people starting out. What would be some good roles for someone to apply for in a startup that's maybe just fresh out of university and ready to kind of start a career?
I think to be honest, like there's no limit to that. And unfortunately or fortunately, it would really depend on the mindset of the hiring manager. A lot of people want to break into cyber. And I think most of the people who want to break into cyber are probably people who want to be in technical roles. And people who work in marketing, probably it would be a little easier. Although if somebody does come from a technical background, it would be very, very beneficial because it will be a lot easier for them to understand what the CTO or the technical people who relay that information that marketing team needs to then put out there for everybody to consume. It'll be a lot easier for them to truly understand and find the right words to translate it and to message it correctly. But when it comes to technical roles, and I think it's probably, like you said, more true to startups because startups may be more open-minded. I wouldn't Possibly larger companies have that as well because they do sometimes have even the very, very large ones. They would take new grads. So there's not a lot of expectation of past experience there. But I think for the recommendation for the people wanting to go into cyber is to really understand understand what they like about it and what they want to do, and maybe do some homework on their own. And by homework, and we're talking about people in the community, it's not homework, it's basically go ahead and dedicate your entire life to it. So I've had to hire on potential a lot more than it is advised. Like I said, I've worked globally, and every country has different levels of advancement, different talent pools. So I have worked with markets where cyber talent just doesn't exist. Where I am in Japan, very much behind. They have a huge gap in cyber skills. Whereas in the US, for example, you can take your pick, and maybe your pick will depend on how much money you're willing to pay. Here, I'm dealing with a very different situation because I can spend 2 years looking for someone and I'm not going to find them. So the approach for me shifted to hiring potential and understanding what will ultimately, after training, what will make that great person. And I apply that to all the markets. Now it doesn't kind of didn't keep it in Japan, but I think so for, and it really helped me to see that these individuals, regardless of what their previous job was, if they're fresh out of school or they worked in IT or they were a patisserie chef, which is actually one of our employees used to be. So I've done a lot of hires where people shifted midway through their career. You can see that this is a passion for them. You can see that they're in the forums, they attend conferences, they take courses. It's not that I'm a big believer in certifications, and I think that certifications are a testament to a person's true ability, but the fact that they spent their own time and their own money, it shows how much they really want that. And so you can see in their mindset and in their passion and in their dedication to the field that it's something they are ready for, understand what life would expect them in that world, and that they really truly want it. Um, and I would absolutely take a chance on people like that. So kind of show me that you're interested. I don't really care what you're coming from. Just show me that you're willing to invest. Obviously, critical thinking, attention to detail, curiosity, these kind of endurance, preferably, these kind of character traits would be very beneficial. So that's for the people looking to make the change. Just try. And I'm actually and to the hiring managers and the companies, I have come across people who spent many, many years in IT, and just because their role wasn't defined on paper as security, they were very security adjacent. They actually have the perfect background to do the shift within weeks and be perfect for incident response roles, software, whatever roles, and they're not getting hired purely because they are in IT, not in cyber. And it makes me mad that they're using that to either underpay people or not hire people and not give people a chance. So I would very much appeal to the hiring managers, employers, like open your mind a little bit. There are absolutely brilliant people out there with great experience who will make amazing employees because they have a really good background that all you need to do is put a little bit on top of whatever product you're doing or like how you're delivering your service. And you're overlooking that in favor of someone who maybe worked for a cyber company, but they have no IT experience. So they have tunnel vision and no peripheral vision, which is really, really important when you're investigating something. Yeah, so that's just my take towards both.
That's one of the things I like in there that you kind of mentioned is, not taking a chance on like people with IT backgrounds. I think that's a big mistake because if you really look at the reason why you would hire someone with a college or university degree, you're hiring them for what they've learned, the fundamentals. So if you've got the background in IT, you've got real world fundamentals, and it's a little easier to learn security when you have those technical backgrounds. I've talked to people that worked in companies that do digital forensics, and they wouldn't have, some of the best employees they would have didn't have a forensics background, but they worked in IT, either they're developers or they worked desktop support, understood how computers worked. So it's just a matter of learning some applications and how to do some processes. So I really think that's great that you mentioned that. And really, I think that hiring managers need to be more open-minded and consider those type of people, at least, interview them, give them a try and see, because you may be surprised at what you come up with if you take a chance on someone.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a shame when they're being overlooked. And yeah, some of my best people on my team were developers who wanted to shift into security, like you said, or people who were system administrators, people who worked in IT for a few years, but yeah, also people who just came from a completely different field and really showed up, did their homework very quickly. Have there's been so many over years, but yeah, like they've become principals very, very quickly within a few years because when you got it, you got it. And the AT experience it's the fundamentals of what builds it up. There's a reason why security broke out of AT. And yeah, I think the again, probably many people will not like me for saying that, but because it's great that there is a degree in cybersecurity now. But like you said, it's theoretical knowledge. Doctors don't only get theoretical knowledge and then thrown into hospitals. They do residency and they try it with their hands. And then this is what a person with a cyber degree, I don't know how useful they are. In my opinion, I would take a person with IT experience over a shiny cyber degree with no hands-on application. Um,
Yeah, and that's one of the things too when it
please don't
comes to,
hate me. Just please go and do a couple of years in IT, and then you'll be great. Yeah.
yeah, definitely helps. Well, for my background, because I started out in IT, so I spent the first 6 years of my professional career, actually after my CAD drafting career, I spent 6 years in IT, and that prepared me for cybersecurity. And I wouldn't trade any of that experience I had from the sysadmin side for doing pen testing because you really need to understand the operating systems really well when you're doing pen test of infrastructure and hosts. So that experience helped me a ton, and that would have been really hard to have gotten that from a degree. Maybe if you went through and got like the back in the day the MCSE certification, which I did have, but that kind of training to give you that level of knowledge to be able to perform well in those roles. And sometimes universities kind of miss going in enough of those types of technologies and stuff to really help. And so for you, you brought up some really good points on taking a chance on people. What are some other advice that you'd have for hiring managers to be able to find talent? Because they claim sometimes there's a talent shortage, and I think sometimes people aren't looking close enough, or they're not taking chances, as you kind of mentioned, taking chances. So what are some of the ways that hiring managers can find talent that is supposed to be so difficult to find these days?
Well, I think it really depends on the role. Right now, I'm more focused on incident response, although sort of and the offensive side as well. But SOC, for example, SOC analyst and IR, they're different people. Ultimately, they don't have to be, but the job requirements are different. So I would approach it a little differently. But yeah, I think in general, what I mentioned about the certain characteristics, they would apply throughout. So if you're not looking specifically at how many years of experience, or maybe you know what kind of tools you would prefer them to have prior experience with, or frameworks or anything like that, I would very much look at the person and the personality, because I think there is, obviously everybody is different, but there is some common traits that people possess that make them more successful in that field, like I mentioned before. And part of it is really a passion about it, because unlike, I think to work in cyber, in the majority of the roles in cyber, maybe not all of them, but in the vast majority, it's never just a job. It is something that is also your hobby, that is also your interest, that is also something it's not a 9 to 5 and I'm done and I'm not never thinking about it. It's something you are following and you're a part of in some way. You become a part of a community. So kind of looking at it like that, because once for someone, if their interest is limited to the 9 to 5, then I don't know, maybe they'll be good at the scanning of the pen testing, which is just a checkbox, but not at the deeper stuff, not at the things that are creative and dynamic and require other things. But definitely critical thinking. I think the ability to work under pressure, because in incident response and incidents, obviously there's the time sensitivity, there's the sensitivity of the material that you're dealing with, but even on the SOC, on the smaller elements, a lot of the time you're given a time limit, and you need to determine severity, you need to determine other things, and it can be very stressful. So you need to be able to make decisions. You need to be able to work under pressure. So these are things that are important for those individuals to possess, and not to overlook small details, kind of to be able to look at bigger picture, small picture, and all those things.
So yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing kind of the story of how you started your startup Threatlight and how that came about, and maybe you could just kind of share about that. Always working for startups and stuff, I'm always interested to hear a good story about how people started their startup and just kind of, the problem that they were looking to solve and all that's always kind of fascinating to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about it. So we threat lights, we started I think it's been a year and a half ago or so. But there was some joking around about potentially starting a company over the years a few times, but I never, with various people, and there were even some ideas floating around, but I never kind of thought that it would really happen. And Threatlight actually happened more unexpectedly than I thought. But I was in the process of exiting my previous job after 8 full years, which is very long to be in one company, to see a startup through so many stages, and you're basically, it's like working for 6 different companies. But yeah, so I was in the process of deciding what to do next, and in my head I was thinking that I'm probably going to go and be a COO somewhere or something like that. But at the same time, I think one of the things that kept me there for such a long time was the great people and how we all stuck together and helping people and kind of being very, very dedicated to everything. And we did see many times that there were gaps in the security world. Yeah, I'm not, this is not news to anybody. There's a problem. There are many problems. Security teams are overwhelmed. They're under-resourced. Be it an in-house security team, um, be it a vendor, be it whoever it may be. Security products do not solve security. They solve individual problems. The teams in-house or in MSSPs, wherever they may be, there's a flood of alerts, there's overwhelm, and there's a huge issue with the human to automated factor as well. Business that controls it all doesn't always see the value, doesn't always see the value until it's too late. Budgets are an issue. There's so many gaps, and it was very painful to look at. And kind of through being close to all of these aspects for so many years, we did have our ideas of how we would potentially maybe do it better. And what and one of the things that was painful was that we felt like security vendors, and I'm generalizing, but the security vendors aren't trying to solve the security problem. The large vendors, that they're trying to slap a band-aid on and to give people, the minimum necessary things to keep the customer, make the money, upsell something, move on. And we wanted to do good, and we wanted to actually help people in crisis solve the problems we've seen many, many times. And I know you know this from pen testing, and I've seen it firsthand a lot from incident response, and today I see it also from pen testing as well. You do incident response, you give a customer recommendations, they don't have time, they're left with the report, nobody touches it, they come back, they have the same incidents again. Same thing happens with pen tests. You find vulnerabilities, you tell them they need to fix it, unless it was for compliance and they would fail an audit. It doesn't happen because they don't have the resources, they don't have the time. Same problems resurface in the same report, incidents happen, etc., etc. And I had a customer that had the same incident 5 times. Not because we did something wrong, because they never had the time or the know-how or the people to actually address their condition. So the configurations of products are causing so many problems and so many incidents. So basically the idea was, let's take what we know to work and what we understand how to do better, be it on the side of how we deliver, be it on the side of what we deliver, and let's try to make a security solution that is more effective and that is faster when there's incidents. We'll know about them faster, we'll resolve them faster, we'll be scalable, and we'll be cost effective because we're not, we're not trying to be the big four. We don't want to charge millions of dollars. Nobody has the money for that. Let's make enterprise level excellent security accessible to everybody. And that was the idea behind Threatlight. And the other kind of nice to have idea was, let's do it really well, let's make money, and then when we have the money, we'll be able to allocate a portion of that to doing pro bono work, because we are apparently very naive people who think that it's very unethical to hack children's hospitals. How dare they? So yeah, I know that we shouldn't be expecting adversaries to behave in an ethical way, but for whatever reason, those things they hurt more. And we said, why don't we do what we can do in the best way possible, so that when we get ourselves to that position, that we can do some good as well. And we would really like to be in that position, that we can do pro bono work for institutions that need it, and helping other people and they need help and they do not have the budgets and they're obviously being targeted, and we know how much the healthcare system is being targeted, and then a few others. So kind of that was the ethos, that was the idea. We started from pure play of incident response with a side of offensive, because that was our comfort zone, and that we kind of have built teams and business units like that for several iterations. So that was the natural, comfortable place for us to be. We very much believe in automations and scale and platforms, but we also do not believe in handing them over, because there's a reason why a lot of tools go to die. when they're being bought. Basically, if you put a product out there and you put it in the hands of somebody else, that somebody else needs to hire people, pay them money, hope they have the time or the know-how how to operate the tool. And to put an entire in-house incident response team or SOC or whatever it may be is not something, it's not an undertaking every company can do. And like my co-founder likes to say, you don't sell a fighter jet without a pilot. So we decided to keep the pilot. So we built a platform that does incident response at scale and speed. We don't care if we investigate one endpoint or 40,000. Doesn't matter to us. We're faster, which is very, very important anytime at an incident, but for ransomware especially. We had a customer that luckily we were there in the first hour and we stopped we caught them with their pants down basically, and we saved their, like, it was a family business 30 years run, and they were about to lose everything and shut down, and luckily we managed to save it. It was so fortunate that they brought us in early enough, and they were back to business 72 hours later, pretty much not intact obviously, but yeah, they would have shut down if they'd waited another day. And they did have cyber insurance, by the way, and they activated it. But by the time they got a response, it was clear that we're very much in. So we all know that speed and incident response means a lot. So this is the base and the core of what we do: incident response at scale and speed. But kind of as we were developing the platform, we realized that as much as we don't want to go back to dealing with EDRs, XDRs, that our forensic platform is actually doubling as a monitoring service. So we struggled with the concept of that for a few weeks because we really didn't want to do it. But we realized that we would be depriving the world of something really good. So basically, we have both detection and response and full spectrum incident response within one agent. It's the same tool that does the same, so you never need to deploy anything else. We pre-position. We focus on business critical assets. We don't do the play of, it's not about covering the full estate. It's not about selling more licenses. We actually prefer to do it focused, prefer to do it targeted. We don't think every endpoint is relevant to an attack and to an attacker. So we kind of find what's important and we try to cover what's relevant for attacks. Everybody does Windows and EDRs Windows very, very well. So yes, of course we support Windows, but anyone can do that. So we very much specialize in Mac and Linux, ESXi, hypervisors, and all the things where detections and investigation and tools usually fall short. We can also integrate with pretty much any EDR. We have integrations. We can ingest data from a lot of them because customers have been asking us to do it for them. But unlike regular MSSPs that focus on alerts, we don't do that. We don't focus on alerts. We focus on incidents themselves. We don't send anybody alerts. We don't send notifications. We assume breach. That's our mindset. We operate like that. We detect based on that, and we alert ourselves and go into response. So you kind of have MDR, but with a very, very capital R on the response. And we call it response forward because we're basically putting the art, the center at the front, and everything surrounds that. We're creating quiet for the customers, no alerts, no flags, quiet. You've seen our stickers. I think you have our alerts or bullshit sticker. Yeah. So we focus on taking the burden off of them, giving them quiet, and for us to making sure that they have business continuity as much as possible.
Yeah, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know it's late there where you're at. So what time is it there in Japan?
It is 11:18 p.m., but since, so many of our customers are in the US on both coasts, this is nothing.
Okay.
So yeah. Yeah, we are global and we have people spread out across, the world, but as a founder, I have to be everywhere. So yeah, it's not an issue at all. Gotten used to being on all time zones.
Well, it's great. Great chatting with you, and thanks for joining. And I look forward to seeing you at Black Hat here soon.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you as well.
Thanks everyone for joining. If you enjoy the podcast, make sure to subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, follow on other platforms and share with your friends. Until next time, take care.
Thank you for listening to The Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Phillip Wylie. Until next time.